Hi everybody, welcome to our Taubmans live colour advice session. My name is Fiona, I'm the Taubmans colour specialist, and we are here this evening for another live session to answer all of your questions. So for those of our regular joiners, if you like, it's great to have you back with us. And for those that are new to our live colour sessions, I'm going to let you know how the sessions roll. So for the first half an hour, I will be behind the camera and we'll be streaming live. And that is a fantastic opportunity for you to upload any questions that you do have. We're here to talk about your projects, certainly here to talk about colour and help you to create and devise, a fantastic colour scheme for your space. But we also do have a wonderful portfolio of products that are designed to protect and beautify your space, so we can recommend some fantastic products to help you bring your project to life. So for those that love to share images with me, it's fantastic to see your space and to be able to get a better understanding of what you're wanting to achieve. You can do that, but for the first half an hour as we stream live, you're unable to upload images, but don't fear. After the first half an hour, we may not be behind the camera, but I will be behind the computer for a further half an hour or so to continue answering your questions. And then it is a fantastic opportunity for you to upload images, photos, etc. then, and I'll do my very best to answer them for you. So we're live, we've kicked off. As I said, pop your questions into the feed and I'll do my best. Now, what we do each and every fortnight, I was going to say week, we're now doing fortnightly, we have a look at, the most frequently asked questions. So we go through all of our feeds, so all of our social media feeds, and certainly the questions that you send to us via Taubmans. And we have a look and we then decide what are the most reoccurring questions for this duration. And then we like to bring them to life because our sessions are designed to be all about you and we like to keep it real. So we certainly, look to you for questions and then do our best to bring them to life. So I've got quite a few here that I'm going to do my best to answer, but don't let that stop you from popping any questions that you do have into our feed. Okay, so the first question is, when colour drenching, do I use the same exact colours or do I choose a slightly different but similar shade? So for those that are not familiar with colour drenching, it's kind of as it says, it's drenching the space in one hue or one colour. So by that, I mean, you're painting your walls, your doors, your trim and your ceiling in the same hue. So let's just take green, for example. So you may paint, all of those areas in green. You can use the same colour or you can start to vary sort of the shades. It looks fantastic. Very much on trend, and you can even go as far when they talk about drenching colour in the space, using the same sorts of, I'm referencing green, so using green bed linen, your furniture can be green, so it really is drenching that space in one or one colour or one colour family, if you like, hence green. Can look really, really good. The other way you can use this is to do it in, you can even do it in a lighter tone. You can certainly use soft sort of blues. You can even go into soft greens as well, pinks, anything you like. Or if you've got a small space and you're wanting it to feel, you're wanting to create, a small space and making it feel or create the illusion of more space, I should say, you can use even a white, but varying your sheen levels. And by that, you'd be using a flat for the ceiling. And the reason we say to use a flat on your ceiling is it stops any glancing light and it hides any imperfections. So that's something to be really crucial, or to understand. It's really important. And then on your walls you'd use something like a low sheen, or you could even use a matte finish. So if you've got old walls that have imperfections, when you start to lessen that sheen level, so matte going down to matte, which is quite a flat finish, again that hides imperfections. So using a matte or using a low sheen on your walls. And then for your doors and trims, it's up to you whether you have a preference of if you like a semi-gloss or a gloss. But when you're using varying sheen levels or glossing up those doors and trims, they tend to look the colour tends to look a little bit more intensified. So it's a fantastic look. It looks wonderful, as I said, using or saturating your space in a colour, or even using it in something using like a white as well. So there's a couple of options there, but that's what colour drenching kind of is. And then the next question was, how do I make my rooms appear larger? Well, that kind of just feeds from what I've just spoken about. And again, if you've got small spaces wanting them to appear larger, using that one colour up and over, what happens is there's no sort of jarring where the colour meets or where the colour ends. So if you just paint your wall sort of in a colour, then you've got a white ceiling, it's at that point where the ceiling or even the cornice meets the colour of the wall where the eye stops, sort of looks around, has the ability to subconsciously size up the space, whereas when using the one colour sort of up and over, the eye doesn't really have anywhere to stop, so it gives the impression or illusion of the space being larger. So it works really, really well. Okay, I've got my first question for this evening. Hi Lauren, thanks for joining us this evening. And your question is, I'm doing a Federation renovation and I'm after a perfect exterior greige for weatherboards, more beige colour with a matching white trim. Thanks. Okay, let's have a look. So more beige as opposed to greige I'm taking. Let me have a look here. Okay, there's a fantastic soft greige that would look, I've just got to find it. Pebble Bay is always a really great place to start. Of course, I can't find it when I want it. Any other time it just pops up. It's always the way. I'm going to have to look at the reference here. Bear in mind when you're putting colours, I'll do two things at once. I'll look for the colour name, but I'll keep talking. When you are using colours on an external surface, colours have the ability to lighten up around 30%. So when you are selecting an exterior colour, always have that in mind, and it really does apply when you start looking at whites, because whites do tend to bleach out in the sun. So what I recommend is when you have a look at the colours, get yourself a sample pot and don't directly paint it onto the surface that you're wanting to paint. Get yourself a large piece of cardboard, so maybe 1 metre by 1 metre square. It's a really good size. And then you're going to paint 3 coats of the colour. First coat aids as an undercoat on that piece of cardboard. And then once, allow adequate drying time in between. Once your coats are dry, then test it. So the best place to test it outside is in full sun and just see how the colour performs for you in your environment. And also too, in the areas where you're not getting that direct sun, just to ensure that it still sits the way you want it to. Also putting it against existing elements on a home. So for example, things like your garage door, window, colours of your window, etc. They all need to be taken into consideration when you're selecting the colour for your home. So here's a colour that I think could look fantastic. I'm going to hold it up, but I do suggest getting a sample pot, or at least having a look at a colour chip, because what you're going to see on screen is going to look different to the actual colour. So here is a colour. It is the third one down. It's called Pebble Bay. That's a beautiful soft beige. Does have that slight element of greige, but more beige as you're saying. And then you could put that with a soft white. Let me just see what white's going to look or accommodate that really, really well. Yeah, here we go. Cotton sheets. Looks fantastic. So you've got Pebble Bay and then cotton sheets. They work really, really well together. That would be something worth considering. Another tone, if you're wanting something a little bit more, let me just see, with a little bit more depth, have a look at Sisal Rope, which is, again, it's the third colour down here. That's another beautiful tone, and for a white to pair back with that, let me just find you the perfect white for your trims. Right. I'm going to say big white, but it's just throwing maybe a slightly, let me just have a look, a slight bit of pink. I don't want that. It could be my lighting here, however. Oh, that's beautiful. Have a look at Sisal Rope and Tahira White together. So Tahira White's going to be a fantastic trim colour to offset that beautifully. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you'd like any further suggestions. But as I said, Lauren, do get a sample pot. Do test it on a large piece of cardboard and have a look how it works outside for yourself. Okay, if any further questions, please pop something else to the feed and I'd be happy to assist you further. Thanks. Okay, what have I got here? Okay, so hi Matthew, thank you very much for joining our session this evening. So you're saying, can you explain how going Snowy Mountains half compared to Snowy Mountains will affect the colour? So with any colour, when you start going half strength versus quarter strength, etc., you are, so what they're doing is if you've got a colour, you've got the full strength colour, when you start playing around with the formulas and going a half strength, a quarter strength, you are doing, you basically half strength, let me just put this, the tint that goes into it, using half of the amount of tint that goes in to create that colour. So you're going to get a lighter version of the colour that you know, the full strength colour. So it's always good when you're starting to play around with colours and you're going to a half strength or a quarter strength of the colour. If the colour doesn't exist, and by that I mean, you know, some colours, for example, I had Pebble Bay a moment ago and I had Pebble Bay, I've got a full strength, a half strength and a quarter strength, so I get to see what the colour looks like. And then the other colour I had up a moment ago was Sisal Rope, so only full strength was there. There's not a half strength or a quarter strength. So if I were to go and, if I'm wanting to take, say, Sisal Rope down to half strength, the colour's going to lessen. So it's not going to be quite as intense, but it's always good to get a sample pot or a test so that you can see how the colour varies. But generally, you know, if you've got a full strength colour, you're taking it down to half strength, quarter strength, you're just diluting that colour down and then it starts to look lighter. Sometimes I've seen when you start playing around with colours and you are playing around with the formulations, you know, sometimes if a colour, for example, if a colour has perhaps a bit of red, sometimes when you take it down to a half strength and you're putting it up against another colour, sometimes the red that exists in that tint may become more prominent. Hence, I always recommend testing the colour when you're starting to play around with variances. That is if you don't already, if it doesn't exist. So it's always good to test it. I hope that helps. I got there in the end, the long way around, but happy to answer any further questions around that, Matthew. Thanks. Hi Lisa, thank you very much for joining us this evening. So your question, or what you're asking, is my teenage girl wants to paint her room green. Any recommendations, please? Yeah, there's some beautiful, beautiful greens. Like green is very much on trend, and green is being defined as one of the new neutrals. So I believe that we will see green around or trending or being used for quite a few years to come. So sage green is a wonderful style green. It's kind of timeless, and there's a beautiful green that I think would look fantastic for a bedroom. I'm just going to see if I can find it here. Depending on the intensity, so where are we? So there is a wonderful green here. So the third one down, I'll just pop that there, which is called White Clover. And then if you go down one more, I'm a bit cack-handed here. There's another colour here called Highland Meadow, which is fantastic. So White Clover or Highland Meadow would look fantastic in a bedroom. And you could do as I was talking about before, you could colour drench, you could do the walls, doors and trims, etc. all in that one colour, or you could offset it with a beautiful neutral, like a soft white. So if you're looking for a white to go with Highland Meadow or White Clover, I imagine, let me just have a look here. I think that, now I've lost my green, Crisp White. Yes, it is. Crisp White looks fabulous. So here is Crisp White up against White Clover. And if I bring it down one, Crisp White up against Highland Meadow. So a couple of really beautiful greens to pair back with a beautiful soft white as well. I hope that helps. Lisa, let me know if you'd like any further colour recommendations. Happy to give you some further greens or anything else. Thanks. Hi Kez, thank you very much for joining us. So would the colours you suggested for the Federation home look okay if going for a modern coastal exterior as well? You can certainly use a greige on a modern coastal exterior. Absolutely. What else, Kez, do you have in the mix of colour? And by that I mean, you know, what colour is your roof, your windows, your garage door, Are you wanting to also put, are there any stones or anything else we need to take into consideration? Even, you're wanting to add a pop of colour by way of a front door or something like that. Come back with a little bit more information and I will be very happy to put together a fantastic coastal colour scheme for you. Thanks. Okay, I'll just, while I wait for that, I do have here a question. What sheen do I use for the exterior house walls? Really good question. So for the exterior of your home, depends on what your substrate is. So for a render, you could use a matte finish. So you could use something like our Taubmans All Weather in matte, or you can even use a low sheen, weatherboards, etc. on the exterior facade. A lot of people use low sheen. And then for things like doors, you could use a gloss on your doors, and even trims, you could, elevate that colour by glossing it up, as I've talked about before. So it depends on what you're painting, but generally, a lot of times, it's generally a low sheen that most people tend to choose for the exterior of their home to paint. So I'm just going to show you here, when we talk about glossing up a colour, so here is something that I prepared earlier, and I hope you can see that here on the screen. So when you have, here is a colour called Blast Blue, and it's, this is what it would look like in a low sheen, and this just emulates what it would look like if I were to gloss it up. So when I talk about painting a front door and wanting to add a pop of colour and glossing it up, this is what it does. It intensifies the colour, and you can also see it here when I show you, if I get the, if I show you what it looks like with the red as well, if I move it around the light there a bit, you can see how the colour intensifies. So it's really wonderful when you are doing a front door, for example, to gloss it up, to just intensify that colour. And then when we were talking about colour drenching before, and I was making reference to, say, using, even using a white to create that illusion of more space by changing the sheen levels and then glossing up your doors and trims, it's going to just elevate and intensify that colour just that little bit, as I've just shown you there. Oh, Lisa, you're very welcome. I hope those greens sort of hit the mark for you. I think they're the most beautiful tones, and they will, it's not too pastel, like, so it would suit definitely a teenager. But anyhow, if there's anything else that you need some help with, if you want any further colours, let me know. Thank you. Okay, and there's another question here. These are the questions that I had earlier that have come through our social media channels. What sheen levels do sample pots come in? So they come in a low sheen, designed so that you can experience the colour and ensure that that colour is perfect for your space. Now here's another tip when we're talking about sampling a colour via a sample pot. So for internal, when you're deliberating over a colour and you're wanting to see whether it's going to work within your space. And as I mentioned before, painting that large piece of cardboard, acquiring, a metre by a metre square. I talk about this pretty much every time we have a live colour session, because it's really critical to see how the colour works in your space. So, you make your colour sample. You've got your floor, you've got your wall, you've got your floor. So you put your big swatch up against the wall so it's touching on the floor. And then you have a look at the colour in daylight. So natural light is going to give you the best indication, or it's where you'll see the colour in its truest form. And by putting it up against the wall and touching the floor, if you've got warm flooring, by that I mean, say you've got some timber flooring and, you're getting sun that comes through there, that flooring can sort of influence the colour on your wall, and all of a sudden your wall colour can sort of feel a little bit warmer. And the same applies if you've got like a red leather lounge. At certain times of day, the wall colour may actually look a little bit pink. So it's just understanding how the colour works in your space. So by testing it there, you're looking at it in daylight. As I said, it's where you see colour in its truest form, but also to looking at it of an evening with your artificial lighting on, because varying, like you've got your varying degrees of light, so your Kelvin, so the lights can again influence your colour choice, especially if you've got warm lighting. And then again, so you've got your wall, this time you've got your ceiling, and you're putting your sample against the wall, but it's touching the ceiling, and that way you can see how it looks in a different space, again, in daylight, but also of an evening when you've got your lights on, so you can see how the color sort of plays in your environment. I recommend doing that, and I also recommend doing it in a few areas of your home. So doing it in areas where, you know, your rooms are saturated with natural light, and then also the reverse in areas where you do not get much natural light, so you can see how that color looks in your space as well. That way you're getting a really well educated look at your color and understanding how it works in your space. I've seen so many times where people go to their friend's house and, you know, Jane's got the most beautiful white on her walls, and consumer, you know, goes and purchases, say, 15-litre drum, takes it home, wants to go and paint the house out, puts it on and is disappointed because the colour doesn't look the way it looked in her friend's home. So it's really important to see how it looks in your space, because your elements and lighting will definitely change the way a colour will look. That's a really good tip, and I say that all the time because I've just helped lots of people that have been disappointed with how their colours turned out. So one tip to sort of alleviate that disappointment, if you like. What other questions do I have here? Okay, what are some new colour trends? Okay, so some of that's come through our feed. So as I mentioned before, look, green is, as I've said, defined as one of the new neutrals, and green is a colour that is here to stay. Green is fantastic, and a wonderful, wonderful colour choice if you're wanting to create a beautiful sort of relaxed mood, if you like. Blue as well, certain shades of blue look fantastic. So you've got your greens, you've got lots of beautiful warmer style whites that are really evolving, and we're going to see that sort of sticking around for quite a while, I think. And we're starting to see moving away from the cooler greys to more warmer greys. And also we're starting to see those warmer neutrals come into play, and especially for, you know, exterior on homes as well. So colour's kind of going that way. Let me have a look here. Okay, so colour is moving towards, you know, those warmer whites, etc. So I would start there, and the best way is we have our 2025 colour forecast. It's called Home, and there are some wonderful colours here. This is the, I'm always cack-handed when I'm on screen. This is the wonderful forecast here, but what we've done this year, I've put together, so there are notations under every colour which gives you a product recommendation and also a recommendation of what area you could use that colour in. So it takes away some of the angst when selecting colours, because I know it's not an easy task for everybody. So there's a selection of whole house interior white, so you've got warm, neutral and cool tones, and then you've got some fantastic kitchen and dining colours. You can continue going through the whole, even right down to nursery colours. So there's some wonderful schemes here. So if you're not sure of where to start, and even some beautiful exterior colour schemes designed to work with, you know, some of the trending ColourBond colours as well. So that's a great place to start. You can have a look, see what's trending by way of colour, and also it's all over our, if you go to www.taubmans.com.au, it is all over our homepage. And, you know, you can click on where it says home. I'm looking at it now. You can click on where it says home, and you can sort of guide your way or navigate your way through some fantastic colour schemes. Alrighty, what else do I have here? Okay, so Jess, hi Jess, thank you for joining us this evening. So you're saying, any advice on how to pick internal wall colours for a whole house new build? Yes, I do. So my advice is to start with, there's two things that you're going to want to look at. So the colour of your windows is going to be really important to help select or help to guide that interior colour, and also to picking a tile or something that's going to be on your floor as well. So your flooring is going to help to dictate the tone of the colour that you are going to select. So I would start there. Like when I'm helping people that are doing a new build, I usually say to them, look, go out and select your tile, and then we can build a colour scheme based on that. But I also do take into consideration the color of the window as well, because you're going to have your white or your wall color sitting up against that at some point. So you want them to be harmonious. You want them to work really well together. So that would be a starting point, having a look at your window frames and also having a look at an element that's going to exist within your home by way of a tile or something like that. That would be my advice. I'm happy to help you further if you've got images, etc. of your tile. I can help you build a colour scheme as well. Very happy to help you. Hi Lauren, so you would love a suggestion of a black colour for a door that would go with Pebble Bay and Sisal rope scheme you mentioned earlier, thanks. I'm automatically thinking of a colour called Casino. So black's just not black. Black can be almost a little bit like white if you like. You know, there's so many varying colours of white and they've got different undertones. And black also has different undertones. So when you're selecting whites, it can be really tricky when you're looking at a lot of whites all together and you put them all together, it's like, oh, they all start to look similar. It becomes quite daunting. I always say to go armed with a white piece of computer paper when you're going to store, or pick up one of our Taubmans Brilliant White colour chips and then put your whites up against that, and then you can see the undertone come to life. Now black is the reverse. When you're looking at blacks and you're wanting to see the undertone, I put the black colours together. So I'm putting the chips together, and then I can start to see if one has more of a red undertone or a bit of a green undertone or a blue undertone or even more of a brown undertone. So that's a little tip for when you're looking for blacks or whites on the colour wall. Let me just see. All right, there's Pebble Bay. I just need to find Sisal rope again. Have to reverse to the index. Okay, 45. Rightio, let me just have a look at some blacks here. Yeah. Right, I think this is going to be very awkward to put it up on screen, but I will do my best. There is a colour, as I said, Casino. It's going to be... That looks... Okay, it's really going to be really hard to see that, but... Here is Sisal rope, there's Pebble Bay, and down here is Casino. Yeah, I'm really not hitting the mark here, am I? Let's just try again. Yeah, and Casino looks fantastic. It's just got a slight, little bit of warmth, only slight, and it's looking, yeah. I'd have a look at Casino. I think that would be a fantastic black to pair back beautifully with Pebble Bay and Sisal rope. I hope that helps. Thanks. What else do I have here? Hi Matthew. Yes, if you do find, if you're asking if I found a colour from one of your competitors, could Taubmans still create that colour for me? Absolutely, we can do that for you. Not a problem at all. Thanks. Okay. Oh, hi, Kez. Thanks for coming back to me. So you're saying that, so you're creating a coastal home, and you're saying that you're tossing up between surf mist or southerly for the roof. And yes, we plan to do a little bit of a stone feature. Plan to render the front windows at the front. Plan to render the front. Windows at the front will be new, so could choose surf mist or white frames to match the rest of the house. Garage and front door could be timber or a colour you suggest. Okay, so we have surf mist or southerly. So two wonderful colours. So Surf Mist, and then you've got Southerly. So Southerly tends to have, for me when I look at Southerly, it has a slight, I'm going to say a very soft sort of purpley undertone. So when I say that, it just tends to have a little bit more red in the colour, or it's throwing a little bit more red. Surf Mist is more of that sort of off-white. So I would be inclined, if I were to be using something like Southerly, let me just have a look. Let me see what's going to work beautifully with that. I'll show you by, let me just put up Sisal Rope and also Pebble Bay. Okay, so I'm going to hold these up just so I can show you what I mean. So I've got Pebble Bay and Sisal Rope together. I've got Surf Mist, and then we have Southerly. So if I put those up on the screen, you probably can't, maybe you can possibly see what I'm seeing here. Let me just get this right here. I'm hoping that you can kind of see where the Southerly is here, which is this one here, how it's starting to throw a little bit more, dare I say, it's almost got a soft, it's got a grey with a very soft sort of, there's a slight little bit of purple to it. So I would probably go for more of a lighter, I think using Pebble Bay or Sisal Rope, with that isn't going to be, the best match we could find. So, however, Surf Mist, you can use it, you could use those neutral beige tones with it, not a problem. You could also, Southerly does sit, however, quite nicely with a colour called Amenity. They sit really, really lovely together. Again, looking at the screen's not going to give you the best indication of how well they work together, as does Surf Mist. Sits lovely with that as well. There's not a huge amount of contrast. So depending on the level of contrast that you're after, you could also, for your beach coastal home, here's another colour that I'd recommend having a look at. Something like, that looks beautiful, something like Lunar Rock. A fantastic neutral that pairs back beautifully with either of those selected colour bond colours. And I know it's going to work extremely well with stones, etc. So that would be something that you could look to use. And then if you were to do something like that, introducing timber, as you've mentioned, for a garage door and potentially a front door would look stunning, along with white window frames as well. So, or I just wanted to see if I can give you something else. Even another one here, a lovely, very, very soft, it's a soft white, pairs back beautifully with either tone. It's called Mount Everest as well. So they work really, really well together. It just depends on the overall look and feel. Coastal, to me, I think using a beautiful, very soft whites or slightly more saturated whites, so to speak, look beautiful on a coastal setting, especially with the introduction of timber, stone. But if you're wanting something with a little bit more colour, let me know and I'll be very happy to offer some further suggestions. Now I'm going to have to stop streaming now. I've gone over time, but I will, just because I'm not in front of the camera doesn't mean I'm shutting shop. I'll still be behind the computer for a further half an hour or so to answer any further questions, and I will certainly come back to the long list of questions that I have there on my computer screen. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this evening. It's been fantastic. Time goes very quickly when you're having fun. We will be back again in another fortnight. I will do my best, as I said, to answer all of the questions before I conclude this evening. So if you've got any further questions or you're wanting to share any images with me, now is the time to do so. But until then, everybody, I'll see you in a fortnight. And as I always say, stay safe and happy painting. Thanks very much. Good night.